morning and welcome to Pod Up with Matthews in the Morning from the Crime Prevention Security System Studios. Large enough to serve you, small enough to care. It's a Wednesday edition and we have a great show lined up. We're going to kick it off with Mary Wise, UF's volleyball coach. In the second portion of the show, we're going to have ESPN and SEC Networks, Peter Burns, joining the show. But first, let's go to the Titan MRI hotline, and we're joined by Mary Wise. Good morning, Mary. How are you?
I'm well, Shane, and yourself?
Doing well. Appreciate you taking the time. We're going to get into Gator volleyball and all that stuff, but I want to talk about Mary Wise first. Mary Wise was a young girl up in Illinois. You decided to play volleyball for the Purdue Boilermakers. What made you choose to be a Boilermaker?
Well, it was an easy recruiting decision when they were the only school that offered a full scholarship. Shane, this is so long ago. Not all scholarships for a sport. Volleyball is a head count, much like football, but not all volleyball programs were fully funded at the time. So Purdue offered the financial aid, and that's where I chose.
Very cool. Well, you had a very good career at Purdue, and then what made you decide to get into coaching volleyball?
Well, I think it was an easy decision when there were so limited professional opportunities. Much like our current players, you play in college, a great experience, and you want to keep playing, but there just wasn't the professional opportunity. So if I wanted to be a part of the sport, the natural was coaching.
And so in 1991, you get offered the head job here at the University of Florida. You come in and just take the league by storm. Talk about coming in 91 and basically starting a program from scratch.
Yeah, 91. Who else was around here at that time?
Shane? Yeah. I was here. That's a long time ago.
Yeah. Am I the only coach on staff that would have seen you play while in this position? Perhaps.
Yeah, I believe so. I mean, you're going into your 30th year, right?
That's right. So, yeah. But let's not talk age.
Okay.
Your question about why Florida. So the Gators had some limited success in volleyball, and I was the associate head coach at Kentucky, working on a great staff there for a great head coach. But I always had an eye on the Gators. You know, it was at time where they flew the Captain Jack. You know, they had their own plane, and you saw the resources. They were playing in the O'Connell Center, which was by far, still is, as Exactech Arena, the nicest volleyball venue in the league. And so I always had an eye on if that job ever opened, and was lucky enough that Anne-Marie Rogers, who was the senior women's administrator at the time, she took a chance on somebody. They had an opportunity to hire some more experienced male coaches, but they took the chance on young female, and still here today.
Here. Yeah, 24 SEC titles, 15 SEC Coaches of the Year. You've been in the Final Four 8 times. Just talk about how the SEC, over the years that you've been here, how it's improved as an entire league in volleyball.
Ooh, I think we really did start at ground zero, in that not when I first got here, very few of the states had high school girls volleyball, no state championships. So you think about it, where and Alabama had just started a program, Auburn had just started a program, Georgia, state of Georgia, with all the people playing volleyball now, there was a time where they didn't even have a state championship. So it meant that the SEC volleyball, we are having to recruit outside of our region, which isn't easy, but there were a lot of people doing that. And at the time, there was great discrepancy in terms of commitment to the sport in the league. And where that has changed is the fact that each of the individual schools have put more resources and allowed coaches, given them time to build programs. And now you see some terrific players coming out of the South. Every state has a state championship now, and that wasn't the case back then. And it's and we've had success, sustained success. What we still need, because in our sport, much like basketball, our sport is defined by how you do in the NCAA tournament. and we've been fortunate enough to be at the Final Four, been in the SEC, in the national championship match. But until an SEC team wins the national championship, the SEC won't be viewed as strong a conference. Is that a fair judgment? I don't know, but it is the evaluation that's used. How do you do in the tournament?
When I look at the volleyball, it kind of reminds me of how the SEC kind of changed softball nationally. You know, it was always the Pac-12 out there, some of the Big 12 always winning the World Series. And then Tim Walton's built his program, Alabama, Tennessee. They finally got over the hump. When you recruited your girls when you first got here, as you mentioned, down in the South, nobody really played volleyball. Did you have to recruit mostly like California and the northern girls when you first got the job?
We did. We were just like today, that we recruit from coast to coast, and we were very successful in attracting players from the Midwest, but we went to California to recruit. But the place where we've had the most success, sustained success, and we even back in the early 90s, is going into Texas. Texas was just ahead of everyone in terms of high school girls volleyball. I've got this theory that they have. They maintain that because their high schools allow for this. They have these classes that, and for all sports, but that the high school coach gets to work with his or her team all year. Honestly, Shane, it's a rule for football. We just benefit from it. So why, Texas high school coaches get to work with their teams the entire year? Well, volleyball does too. You want to get better at something, you do it on a consistent basis.
No doubt about it. We're speaking with Mary Wise, the longest tenured coach, I believe, in the athletic department here at the University of Florida on the Titan MR hotline. Mary, when you talk about recruiting, and I don't even know the answer to this, are all your girls on full scholarship?
Yeah, well, we're allowed 12 full scholarships.
Okay.
And volleyball, like football and basketball, is a head count. So we can't split the sports. Like baseball, softball, track, swimming, those are the equivalency sports. But volleyball is a head count. But the unfortunate thing is we're only given 12. And that would be like basketball only having 10 scholarships. I mean, you can't, you have to have a roster bigger than just 12. So to your question, are all our players on full scholarship? No. We've had over the years a number of players that start for us, great players who came here as walk-ons, meaning they paid their own way. In building a roster in Division I women's volleyball, you rely so heavily on the walk-on. So that's where your in-state talent, your regional talent is so important. So for us, we can recruit a really good walk-on, wants to come to Florida, then we have to hope she can get in academically. So right. You see, there's some challenges here. I know a lot of Gator fans may not realize how hard it is. You think, well, it's Florida, it should be easy to recruit. Yes, we have so many things to recruit to, but at the end of the day, when you're trying to recruit players that are paying their own way, they don't get any special admissions. They have to earn it on their own. Being admitted to the University of Florida, and Shane, nothing to take away from your era, but totally it's so much harder now than it was in the 90s.
Oh yeah, my kids have both experienced that. So from a facility standpoint, it's so big in all sports these days, but especially in football, the recruiting, keeping up with the Joneses. You have your own little facility over there. How important was that for your volleyball program when y'all got that?
Oh, that's a great question, Shane. When we first got here, we were practicing. Volleyball was practicing in the practice court in the O-Dome. I don't know if you remember, there was a little gym off the side, and we had to practice at 6 a.m. because basketball, I was hired in the spring and basketball was just finishing. So here I was practicing at 6 a.m. with this brand new team on a 1-court facility, which is really hard to manage, just 1 court, but that's all we had. And it was the Title IX committee here at the University of Florida who said to the athletic department, look, you have to have a practice facility for volleyball. We were playing, our matches were in the O-Dome. And the O-Dome was great. We just couldn't practice in there, concerts and the like. So that's why the building I'm in right now, the Lemoran Athletic Facility, was built, and it's a 3-court practice facility. And what makes it so unique is, Shane, we don't share it with anybody, not any other sport. It's our facility, and that was in 1995, and you don't even see it today, let alone in 95. So it means our players could come in and work out on their own. The nets are set up all the time. We have full access to it. We're not working around other people's practice schedule or classes or rec intramurals, which is, honest, 2020, that's still the reality of a lot of schools.
Yeah, that's awesome. So let's, in your 30 years here, you've been to the Final Four 8 times, played for the national title twice. I don't think people realize how difficult it is to get to that title match. And then if you don't lose, how much sleep did you lose whenever you didn't win the national title? I mean, it eats at you for years, I'm sure.
Can I admit that I still haven't watched those matches on video? I just can't go there. But there were something we had in common, and it's hard to say it at the time. You need some reflection, but you're exactly right. To get there is so difficult. You're playing the best of the best, and you just have to hope that the stars line up in terms of your matchups, the opportunity, whether you're playing home or away. And really, Shane, the most important thing is, are you healthy? With only 12 scholarships, there's not a lot of wiggle room for injuries. And one of these days, we're going to get back there with our starters completely healthy. Our first time there, Beneva Jenkins, who was leading the nation in blocks, in that October of that year, she tore her ACL, and the story was we got to the championship without her. That was incredible run that we were able to do without her. If Beneva had been on the court, could have looked different, sure. And then the most recent time in 17, our starting liberos playing with a broken hand. And it happens in athletics, it's especially in your sport, but the margin of error is so slim when you don't have as big a roster. So we're going to keep knocking on the door, and one of these days the stars are going to line up and we're going to be healthy and at the national championship match.
When you recruit your girls, I know you've had some international players as well. How difficult is it to recruit girls from other countries to come to the University of Florida and play?
Well, I will tell you, it used to be a little bit easier until especially the European, and this would be true of the Asian and South American countries, have expanded their pro leagues. And now they identify girls when they are girls, very young, and they put them in their pro league. And so to get to talk a player good enough to play for us, to leave a professional opportunity to come play in college, that's much harder. But you're right. When you were here, we built this program with some terrific international players. One of the best players to ever play, I'm not going to say just at Florida, but I mean ever play here in NCAA women's volleyball. Her name was Aycan Gökbak. She was a 4-time All-American here from Turkey, just a phenomenal player. And if she were in high school today, I don't think she would consider coming to the University of Florida, because she could still go to college in Turkey, but make so much money professionally. So today it's much harder to find a player at that level who isn't already a pro. And so they're not international, but I will tell you what we are excited about, and have had great success as recruiting players out of Puerto Rico. And as a matter of fact, we'll have 2 on the roster next year. We signed a player back in November, Sofia Pilar, and she's already played international volleyball with the youth and junior teams out of Puerto Rico. So a lot of international experience, but it's coming to school in the United States.
So educate me and our listeners on, okay, so, in college basketball, a lot of kids, they want to play in the NBA. It doesn't happen. They go overseas and have a good career. We talked earlier in the show about your girls, professionally, what is there for them once they graduate here in the U.S.? And do any of the Americans go overseas and play professional volleyball?
They all do. That's where the lucrative contracts are. Just now, I will say, just this spring, there are discussions to start a women's and men's professional league. And there have been times it is like started, but it just didn't, it couldn't sustain itself financially. Where the WNBA has NBA, if the NFL would like to start a women's volleyball league, we'd be okay with that, because it obviously takes a lot of money. But our Gators, we have 2 of them that have signed contracts to play in Italy next year, and Carly Snyder was playing in France before the shutdown. They go over. You go to Europe, you go to Asia. Kelly Murphy, who played in the Olympics, a Gator All-American, she played in China and made really, really good money. She did well, and the best players will make that kind of money, but it's unfortunately they have to travel overseas to do so.
Yeah. So let's talk about now what you're doing with your roster. I want to say football, women's volleyball, and maybe gym. I don't know. The student athletes are now working their way back to campus. Mm-hmm. I'm sure you've had Zoom meetings with your girls. They're doing their training on their own. When do you expect your volleyball team to be back on campus?
Well, the system that the UAA has put in place is we're going to bring football back first and get them going, which we're all in favor of. We all need football to be played. And then they'll get football started, meaning tested, go through their physicals, get them into the system. And then the next 2 sports are volleyball and soccer, the other fall sports. And so that's mid-June, we'll bring our players back, and we're hoping by like June 23rd, our players will be working out with our strength coach. We aren't allowed coaches to be in the gym with them, and we don't have the protocol yet for how the gyms will open. But in terms of working out with our strength coach, which Shane at this point is the most important thing, because when they left, and they left quickly on March 11th, that Friday, they've been working out, but our strength coach can't monitor them until the NCAA rules changed last week. That now, if they ask, Matt Delancey could watch them through a Zoom call just to monitor them. But we're going to have to get them. I mean, there's being in shape, and then there's playing shape, as you know. And so it's going to take a little while. But if you had asked me a month ago, I don't know if we'd be here. And so I'm encouraged just how many changes have been made where the UAA has, and I feel very fortunate. We all feel fortunate that we have, because of UF Health, because of Shands, we've got some really, really smart people who are helping us formulate the back to campus protocol. And so I think we'll do it safely, and we'll get it done.
When you're speaking of we need to play college football, I think every university says we need to play college football. Have you heard of any? I know I don't know if any Power 5 schools, but some schools have eliminated certain sports. Have any schools all across the country gotten rid of women's volleyball?
You know, I'm so saddened by that being a reality. It hasn't hit women's volleyball, certainly not the Power 5 and not Division I. We have heard of some small, financially strapped small schools having made some tough decisions by eliminating sports. There was a few weeks ago, so what was happening was some Division I conferences were asking the NCAA if they could, because of the virus, because of lack of revenue, could they cut sports but still maintain their Division I status. Mm-hmm. And at that moment, if the NCAA had said yes, I think you would have seen all sports, men and women, being cut left and right across the country. Fortunately, we had a lot of people circle the wagons and petition, and a lot of phone calls and emails being sent to say, don't cut sports, because when you cut, they never come back. And what we're seeing is, just like businesses that were at risk before the shutdown, like athletic departments that were bleeding, those are the ones that are having to eliminate sports because they were in trouble long before the virus. So to your question, Shane, unfortunately, the reality is, yes, some schools have had to cut sports. that has not even been a discussion at Florida, how blessed we are to be at Florida. We haven't had to let people go, which is a reality. We haven't had to furlough. That's happening all over the country, as long as we can still have football. And so I will tell you, Shane, when we get on our group, we have a coaches, we meet like once a month, our coaches do, and every single coach it's all about, hey, whatever football needs to do to play, because we know that's how we survive our athletic department as we know it, is if Dan's team is playing in the fall, and if that means it needs to start a little bit later, they have to make adjustments. I want you to know that every coach will tell you, whatever it takes, whatever we can do to make that happen, we're on board.
No doubt about it. A few more minutes, Mary. Tell us a little bit about your team coming up this year, how excited you are about them.
Yeah, Shane, I got to tell you, we really, really want to play this year because we think we're going to be really good with our returning players. A year ago, we were so young, and that happens, in college athletics, but now a year removed, and we think in terms of, especially in women's volleyball, your success is so often defined about your ability to get kills on the outside, and that's for the outside hitters. And we have our most depth and our most talent we've had there in a long time. With the players coming back, our two starters, they're Hall and Paige Hammonds, plus Mia Sokolowski, and a player that the Gators haven't seen. They didn't see a year ago, but they would have seen her 2 years ago when she went off against us when playing for Georgia. And that's Tiara Caesar. And Tiara transferred, had to sit out last year, but she's eligible to play now. And with the combination of our other positions, we're really excited about this fall season, no matter what it looks like.
Good stuff. Last thing for you, Mary. I know you put on a little fundraiser here in town, the Mary Wise Scramble for Pace. I know it's very special to you. Talk a little bit about that real quick.
Oh, Shane, I really appreciate you giving me that opportunity. The Pace Center for Girls, for those who don't know, is a school for at-risk girls right here in our community. And it was started by two women, actually prosecuting attorneys, that working with troubled youth found that there were so many schools and programs for boys in that situation, but there were none for girls. And so they started what called the Pace Center for Girls, and it's only in the state of Florida. But what it provides are for at-risk girls, and not just because they were in trouble with the law, but maybe they were struggling in school. And sadly, Shane, a high percentage of them have been abused. They're victims, and the school is just is just not the right answer for them at this time. So the Pace Center for Girls has a year-round program that helps them get caught up with their grades and their schooling, transition them back into the school so that they can graduate. And their success rate is the best winning percentage. That's why I say it. They're the most successful team in town. I've been one of their cheerleaders for a long time. We did not get to have the golf tournament this year. It's always the last Friday in April, but unfortunately it was canceled. But the golf tournament's canceled, and yet the difficulty for those girls, it is not affected by the virus. Now it's probably even harder. And so we are going to keep advocating for them. And I promise you, Shane, a year from now, hopefully this is behind us, I'm going to contact you and see if I can steal you away on a Friday morning to play at the UF golf course for a good cause.
I'd love to do that. Well, Mary, we appreciate everything you've done here at the University of Florida. Hopefully we'll be playing football soon and volleyball soon. Y'all stay safe, and thanks for joining the show.
Enjoyed it, Shane. Thank you.
All right, that's Mary Wise, the head volleyball coach here at the University of Florida. Hey, folks, this day in sports is brought to you by The Best Restoration. Do you have COVID-19 concerns? Do what everyone is doing and hire The Best Restoration to fully sanitize and sterilize your home or office. Visit their office this week for a free bottle of hand sanitizer when you mention the code Shane. Call 352-234-8994. This day in sports in 2018, Golden State guard Stephen Curry breaks Ray Allen's NBA Finals record for most three-pointers with 9 in the Warriors' 122-103 Game 2 win over the Cleveland Cavaliers. We're going to be joined here shortly by Peter Burns from the ESPN SEC Network. But first, at Center State Bank, we put business first. We are the largest community bank in the state of Florida. Understand that small businesses need a community business partner that they can rely on. Center State has 5 convenient Alachua County locations to serve you better. To learn more, visit centerstatebank.com. Center State Bank, member FDIC. I want to thank Mary Wise for joining us. We're going to take a quick time out here. When we come back, we're going to be joined by Peter Burns, talking a little SEC sports and mostly football. You're watching and listening to Pot Up with Matthews in the Morning from the Crime Prevention Security System Studios. We'll be right back.
Time out! Time out! Hey! Time out! Time out! Time out! There we go. Good.
We want to take this moment to thank all our sponsors who keep the show going and pay the bills.
Let's give them something to cheer for now.
Our Gridiron sponsors are Crime Prevention Security Systems, large enough to serve you, small enough to care. Titan MRI, Gainesville's only locally owned and operated MRI facility. The Best Restoration, Masters of Disasters. Pound Hurt, your preferred personal injury attorneys. Peachland Dental, Gator fans' first choice for dentistry in Port Charlotte. Our touchdown sponsors are Campus USA Credit Union, Celebration Point Town Center, The Keys Grill and Piano Bar, The Digital Mortgage Guy, Adams Ribs, Cloud9 Spa, Gator Dominoes, Celebrate Primary Care, Center State Bank, Gator Bait Media, Davis Gainesville Chevrolet, Miapa Latin Cafe, Gators Dockside, Aikido America Martial Arts and After School,
Doreen Wiebe Realtor, Caldwell Banker MM Parish,
Radware, Rap Spot. If you are interested in promoting your business on this show, you can visit our website, potupwithshane.com, and click on the advertise button or call Freddie at 352-284-3733. Again, thank you for all the great businesses that support this show. Please remember, if you like what we are doing here, thank our sponsors and support the businesses that support us.
He's looking, still looking. He's going for the end zone. He's got a touchdown!
Welcome back to Pot Up with Matthews in the Morning from the Crime Prevention Security System Studios, large enough to serve you, small enough to care. I want to thank Mary Wise for joining us the first portion of this Wednesday edition. Now we're going to go back to the Titan MR hotline, and we're joined by ESPN and SEC Network host Peter Burns. Good morning, Peter. How are you?
Man, I'm doing good, especially now that I know you got a better looking office than Chris Doring. So, I got to stare at Doring all the time over in Sirius XM, and I look at his little puny office, and I look at your office that's got some real memorabilia there. Shan, that looks a whole lot better, my man.
Yeah, a little bit here and there. I played a little bit longer than Doring, so I got more paraphernalia. But Peter, let's first talk about you. You grew up in Baton Rouge, Louisiana. We know you're a big LSU Tiger fan, but a lot of people may not know that watch my podcast. You play college golf for the Roadrunners, right?
Yeah, UTSA. I wondered if so. Funny story is I'm from Baton Rouge, Louisiana. Everybody in my family went to LSU, Shane, and so I desperately wanted to play for LSU. But at the time, LSU had like a top 20 program, and I was more like top 60 talent playing D1 golf. So my parents said, "All right, you can go walk on at LSU, and you're not guaranteed a spot, or you can get a scholarship and go play over at UTSA." And sure enough, I chose the money and had a blast doing it, man. It was a blast.
Did you always want to know, because it's so hard to make it professionally playing golf.
Yeah.
When you knew that you couldn't do that, did you always want to get into broadcasting?
No, actually, it's funny because, you're right. I mean, it's kind of like, you guys playing football. It's like rarely do you have enough talent like you and Doran and Tebow and those guys to take it to the next level. For golf, I always knew, listen, these guys are on just a different level. And I would shoot a good round of 68, 69. Those guys would shoot 63. And I'm like, yeah, I can't make a living out of this. So I actually worked in the gas and oil industry right out of college. And so I used to drive around through South Texas and South Louisiana. And I got so sick and tired of listening to my same rap CDs that I would burn, like you could burn CDs back in the day. And I was just so sick and tired of listening to the 9 CDs that I had that I started listening to sports talk radio. And I'm like, man, this is cool. And one of the shows for Fox Sports Radio, a guy named Tony Bruno and Andrew Siciliano, who's on the NFL Network, they had a morning show, and they had an American Idol contest one year. And I said, all right, well, let me put together a sports radio idol tape. And somehow they had a contest nationwide. I won it and flew to Los Angeles, got to host for a day. And I was like, this is the coolest thing ever. People get to do this for a living. And so after that, I came back to where I was living in San Antonio, Texas, and I went to the sports radio station And I said, I'll take any job you have. Like, it doesn't matter what it is I want to get my foot in the door. And so they gave me a phone book and a little cube, and they said, go learn how to sell some advertising and check back with us in about a year. And so I learned that, and about a year later, they gave me like a little Sunday morning show at like 5 a.m. where there were like 3 listeners, and it kind of just started growing from there.
That's awesome. You know, what's interesting is my decision came down between Florida and LSU when I was being recruited out of high school in Mississippi.
Really?
You know, Baton Rouge is only about 3.5 hours away, and that was when Tommy Hodson was the quarterback.
Yeah.
And so my best friend was my center. He committed and signed with LSU, and so we were going to be like a package deal. And they were feeding me all the BS. You know, you're built very similar to Hodson. You're our next Tommy Hodson. But I came to Florida, and it turned out pretty well. But Peter, let's talk about.
Wait a minute. So you and I would have been friends, and they said now until this day we've been mortal enemies because you almost were there at LSU. Like, our relationship would have completely changed back in the day, then, Shane. Like, I hated your guts for so long because you guys used to beat the hell out of LSU for so long.
That we did. But speaking of this year, talk briefly. You've obviously had some bragging rights in the studio with a lot of the Gators and Chizik and that whole crew. Just talk briefly about the year Joe Burrow and LSU had. I mean, it was phenomenal.
Yeah, it's crazy because, you know, I go back and I grew up watching Tommy Hodson, and after that, there really wasn't some, you know, great quarterbacks. You know, him and Wendell Davis was such a good 1-2 punch back in the day. And then you went back and, you know, even when I was there with Jamarcus Russell, it never really felt like, all right, Jamarcus overall #1 pick, but it didn't feel like he was transcendent. And the talk was always like, what happens if LSU ever got a quarterback, right? It was kind of a laughing joke after a while. And even the first year Joe Burrow had there, Shane, it was okay, but it always felt like there was, you know, on a golf cart, you have the governor switch. It felt like the little governor switch was on him, like he couldn't take it to another level. And so I remember being told by people close to the LSU football program, they're like, buddy, this spring, your jaw is going to drop. And I'm like, I kind of been told that, you know, I've been sold that bill of goods. I don't know if I'm going to rep that line right now. And after I had talked to a couple more people after the first couple of spring practices, they're like, this is like Tecmo Bowl. This is like Madden on easy mode. And sure enough, I go back and look at it. We'll never see, I don't know if we'll ever see a season like Joe Burrow had just to come out of nowhere and be that good. Proficient, especially in the SEC, how good the defensive backs and how good the defenses are and the coaching is. It still seems surreal, honestly, at this point that he was such a real good way and such an unbelievable player and kind of just a leader, Shane. I mean, you guys know it. There takes a certain kind of cat that's going to have everybody that comes in as a transfer and says, all right, this is my team. And to a T, every single person followed Joe Burrow. And it's, again, I don't know if we'll ever see it anything, not only LSU, but just maybe SEC or college football history.
We're speaking with Peter Burns. You can follow him on Twitter at Peter Burns ESPN. Peter, talk a little bit about, you know, working for the SEC Network. You're surrounded by Gators. You got Dorian Chizik's actually a Gator, played here. You got Laura Rutledge, Tebow. I guess it's you and Marcus Spears from the LSU contingent. Talk a little bit about working with those guys, especially Dorian. He's a character. Obviously, everybody here knows about Dorian. In between commercial breaks, as he's doing push-ups and all that stuff, so he looks a little more buff on TV.
Yeah, what it is when he does his own little portable Botox and we got to tell him to put his shirt back on, he's actually pretty good. No, you know what? I mean, I think that's what's made SEC Network. I'd like to think it works fairly well. Is that we're all kind of boys, you know, and whether it was Maria Taylor, who played at Georgia, or Laura Rutledge and Alyssa Lang, who now was with us, who ran track for South Carolina. Honestly, we're in these text message chains throughout the year, and it's not about sports. It's just we're kind of, you know, we all hang out. And I remember, Shane, whenever we were first hiring for the SEC Network, I didn't go to an SEC school, and I was living in Denver, Colorado. And I remember talking to Stephanie Drewley, who launched the network. And I remember asking her, I was like, why me? Like, I'm not a name or something like that. And she goes, I think of like the group that I want to have on air for SEC Network is like, if we got stuck in an airport for 5 hours, would we just want to just completely end it all? Or would we just have a fun time kicking it and hanging out? And she's like, I just wanted to hire people that would have fun with sports and realize it's not the end of the world. And like, if you could do that, I can teach you the television part. And I thought that was really cool. And I think that's been fun, man. You know, Dorian always has energy. Gene Chizik, you know, the first time he came out and did stuff with us, you know, you could tell he was still in the coaching mode. And It wouldn't open up a whole heck of a lot. And then he went back to coaching. And when he realized he wasn't going to get back in full time, he put everything into analyst, his role. And man, I learned so much every single week. Like it's like a master's course of football that I get to sit with Doring, I get to sit with Spears, and I get to see the game like Greg McElroy and watch it through their eyes. And Chizik really kind of leads the group in that way.
Peter, talking about this year, obviously, my son's on the Florida team. He's had his COVID test. They start back workouts on June 8th. You personally, do you think we start this football season on time?
I do. I think the next couple of weeks, as we sit here at the start of June, I think the next 3-4 weeks are crucial because now with everything opening up, we're going to see is there going to be a mass kind of second wave of people testing positive and this gets out of control? Or, hey, do we kind of understand what we're working with? People social distancing really well. They're wearing masks when they get an opportunity to, and it's not a big deal. I do personally think we will start on time. The question is, will we end on time? I'm actually now even more concerned on the back end of the schedule than I am the front end. And you've seen schools like South Carolina, I think Notre Dame did the same, and some other schools I think are going to do the same, is that they may try to truncate like the fall break. And hey, when Thanksgiving hits, we're off campus. And so that's going to make it interesting to say what ends up happening if late November, all of a sudden, we have this big second wave or third wave that comes. But I think by that time, Shane, I just feel like we're just learning so much more each and every week of how to deal with it and keep ourselves safer. I do think we will have football. I'm a whole lot more confident now than I was if we would have been on this podcast even a month ago, truthfully.
Looking at the SEC this year, let's start in the West. LSU loses a ton of athletes across the board. We know they're going to have athletes. Miles Brennan probably steps in at quarterback. You got Alabama, who's going to be dominant. I mean, too bad we're not going to have SEC media days because with Kiffin and Mike Leach, I mean, my goodness. Talk a little bit about how fun the West is going to be with the addition of Leach and Lane Kiffin.
Yeah, I mean, again, I like, it's so funny. I went back when I was tweeting back in my San Antonio days, like we're talking 15 years ago, and I would remember, covering Leach when he was in Lubbock and thinking, my goodness, if we could ever get Mike Leach to the SEC, it would be a godsend. And then you combine that with Lane Kiffin, who is a character in itself, and then just how damn good the West is, right? Jimbo Fisher played, it seemed like, 155 freshmen last year, and they're returning 17 starters, including Kellen Mond, who might be one of the best quarterbacks this year, at least returning-wise. And then LSU, how good they were. Auburn, is still pretty solid, even though they lost a couple of their big guys on the defensive end. And so it's wide open. I think the West, I say the West and the East, this is as wide open as the SEC has been in 2 decades. There's no doubt about it. Because I always felt like it was, all right, you got Alabama and you got Georgia. But other than that, all right, maybe a snowball's chance in hell somebody else does it. And now the fact that you're coming off the heels of LSU winning a national title, and you've got A&M, I think, can make a run. Auburn's still good, all those schools in the West. And then the SEC East, holy hell. I mean, I still think Georgia has the most amount of talent, but I lean towards what Dan Mullen and the coaching staff is doing. I mean, there just feels like something special brewing in Gainesville, and I don't say that because it's you or Doring. It just feels right. And that's why I think the East is going to be a blast to watch as well.
Yeah, speaking of the East, Georgia, obviously they're going to have probably one of the best defenses in the country. Kirby's recruited extremely well. They bring in Jamie Newman from Wake Forest. A lot of people are high on him. I got to see him play against the big boys first.
Exactly, right.
But they just got JT Daniels from USC. Whether he's eligible or not, we'll wait and find out. But were you surprised that JT Daniels went to Georgia?
A little bit. If for no other reason, it kind of feels like the same situation they got in when they had Jake Fromm and Justin Fields, right? 2 great guys. And frankly, I don't think Kirby handled that situation or the quarterback room the way it needed to be handled at that point. That's one of the reasons why Justin Fields over at Ohio State and frankly, maybe why Jake Fromm ended up not coming back because he didn't feel right about the situation in Athens. But, to me, I'm not shocked in the fact that I do think JT Daniels will probably end up trying to, if I'm not mistaken, might have to sit out a year. I don't know if he's going to get the waiver. And if he does get the waiver, remember, he's coming off of that injury. I don't know if he'll be 100% as well, too. And now you got to have Todd Monken, their new offensive coordinator, and running in a whole new offense. I don't know. I just know that at least for Kirby, I hope that he's learned how to handle that situation of having two capable quarterbacks the right way. Because I think they tried to make Fields work, but they'd almost seem like they were placating Justin Fields as opposed to saying, let's run stuff that Justin Fields is really good at. And maybe they've learned their lesson from there. But I got to be honest with you, give me Kyle Trask in a heartbeat right now. I mean, a guy that's been there, he reminds me a little bit of, Matt Flynn stayed at LSU until his 5th year, hanging around, learning the offense because he wanted an opportunity to show people what he could do. And sure enough, LSU goes on and wins the damn national title in 2007. Trask reminds me a lot of the Flynn story down in Baton Rouge.
So right now, I guess this is what, June 3rd, June 3rd, I believe, a Wednesday.
Yep.
Who does Peter Burns have playing in Atlanta?
Hopefully 2 teams. That would be the case.
Well, that's a good point.
That's what I'm hoping for at this point. I think Alabama is loaded again. And I gotta see Orgeron have back-to-back years to be more like Bama. As much as I like Miles Brennan, I still think they lose so much. I go Alabama and I go Florida Gators. Again, I think that what Dan Mullen does with that coaching staff, there feels to be consistency. And I think throughout of all of this chaos that we've had in so many different ways, but let's just talk about the pandemic and not having spring football, having a coaching staff that's been there, that everybody knows the drill, I think is important. And while they do lose a bunch of playmakers, I just think that in Dan Mullen, I trust, man. I think he's a top 5 coach in all of college football. And I think that he just finds that way. He found that way against Mississippi State a couple years ago, and they probably should have won that game. He found that way against LSU a couple years ago, or 2 years ago when he first took over. I think he finds a way to win against Georgia. And I don't know. I like Tennessee. I think they're still probably 1 or 2 years away, and I don't think South Carolina is going to be able to make a run. I think it's Alabama and Florida coming up whenever we're talking December in Atlanta.
Well, that'll be exciting for the Gator Nation. Last thing before we let you go, Peter. I know you've been around the head ball coach, and I like to ask people when they come on my show, they got to have some great stories because he's a different kind of dude.
Yeah, I mean, so my favorite one is so when he was coaching at South Carolina, I had just been named the anchor, and that was the first year. So he had his media tournament every year. So Cheney asked me, I get invited to it last second, and I was just going to be playing in one of the groups, and coach finds out that I'm a former college golfer. So he ends up kicking out somebody in his group going, well, I heard that Peter Burns, he's a pretty good golfer. Never met him, but let's play him. So I get in the group with them, and I'm thinking, oh, my God, this is great. We're going to be a Spurrier. If you never played golf at Spurrier, I think you have, he's the fastest damn golfer in the history of the world. He wants to play in 2 hours, doesn't want to talk. All right, hurry up, hit. Okay. So we play that day, and I'm on fire. I'm like, we're playing a scramble, but I'm probably 5 to 6 under just on my own ball. I'm just crushing all day long, and Spurrier's just eating it up because he wanted to beat Spurrier Jr., who had won the year prior. That's why he had me on his team. So we're playing well, and we get up to 17, and he hadn't really said a lot to me, because we're in different carts. And I was kind of disappointed because I'm like, man, I'm making all these birdies. He's not saying anything. We get on 17. It's a par 3. It's like 180 yards. And I absolutely rope hooked the dog blank out of it. I mean, straight left, straight out of bounds, okay? Spurrier doesn't miss a beat. He turns to the group in our group, and he goes, well, looks like Peter let us down. Okay, that's all right. We'll get it back. And sure enough, just throws me underneath the bus. I've been carrying the whole team all day long. And sure enough, he just rips me for one bad shot on 17. I made it up, though. I made my own eagle on 18. We end up winning by 1. And I'll never forget, on the SEC Network, he had a press conference, and he was talking about something. And he goes, just want to start the press conference by saying, won my golf tournament this weekend. There was that kid, Peter Burns. Yeah, that kid was pretty good. And it was like the highlight of my life that had Steve Spurrier talking about me playing golf and playing well. So he's a character, man. I love him to death. And he's one of the reasons why the SEC is the freaking best.
No doubt. Well, Peter, we appreciate you taking time to join the program, man. You and your family stay safe, buddy, and we'll talk to you soon.
I will. I'll try to keep Chris Dory in line for you guys out there.
That's tough to do. That is tough to do. That's Peter Burns from the SEC Network. Join us here on Pod Up with Matthews in the morning. When we come back, we're going to wrap up this program, take another break. You're watching and listening to Pod Up with Matthews in the morning from the Crime Prevention Security System Studios.
Timeout! Timeout! Hey, timeout! 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 There we go. Good.
We want to take this moment to thank all our sponsors who keep the show going and pay the bills.
Let's give them something to cheer for now.
Our Gridiron sponsors are Crime Prevention Security Systems, large enough to serve you, small enough to care. Titan MRI, Gainesville's only locally owned and operated MRI facility. The Best Restoration, Masters of Disasters. Pound Hurt, your preferred personal injury attorneys. Peachland Dental, Gator fans' first choice for dentistry in Port Charlotte. Our touchdown sponsors are Campus USA Credit Union, Celebration Point Town Center, The Keys Grill and Piano Bar, The Digital Mortgage Guy, Adams Ribs, Cloud9 Spa, Gator Dominoes, Celebrate Primary Care, Center State Bank, Gator Bait Media, Davis Gainesville Chevrolet, Miapa Latin Cafe, Gators Dockside, Aikido America Martial Arts and After School,
Doreen Wiebe Realtor, Caldwell Banker MM Parish.
Radware, Wrap Spot. If you are interested in promoting your business on this show, you can visit our website, potupwithshane.com, and click on the Advertise button or call Freddie at 352-284-3733. Again, thank you for all the great businesses that support this show. Please remember, if you like what we are doing here, thank our sponsors and support the businesses that support us.
Looking, still looking. He's going for the end zone. He's got a touchdown.
Welcome back to Pot Up with Matthews in the Morning from a Crime Prevention Security System Studios. Large enough to serve you, small enough to care. Really want to thank Mary Wise and Peter Burns from the SEC Network for joining the show today. Two outstanding interviews from two great people. Celebration Point, where the Gators come to celebrate with premium brands like Bass Pro Shop, Palmetto Moon, Skechers, Starbucks, The Keys Grill and Piano Bar, Select Shades, Regal Cinemas, and coming soon, the HBC's new restaurant, Spurrier's Gridiron Grill and Pfizer's Rooftop Bar. We will see you at Celebration Point, where the Gators come to celebrate. Also want to get to our play of the day, which is This Day in Sports, which is brought to you by the Best Restoration. Do you have COVID-19 concerns? Do what everyone is doing and hire the Best Restoration to fully sanitize and sterilize your home or office. Visit their offices this week for a free bottle of hand sanitizer when you mention the code Shane. Give them a call at 352-234-3994. This Day in Sports a couple of years ago in 2018, Golden State in the NBA Finals against the Cleveland Cavaliers. Steph Curry breaks Ray Allen's NBA Finals record for the most three-pointers in a game. He hit 9 in Game 2 with the Warriors win 122-103 over the Cavaliers. So Steph Curry is This Day in Sports, which is brought to you by the Best Restoration. Just to let you know what's going on for the rest of the week, tomorrow's edition, a Thursday edition, will be Ciatric Faison, C4, the great running back out of Jacksonville Fletcher, played for the Gators. And then we're also going to have Zach Albaverdi talking Gator recruiting, what's going on with, all the virtual recruiting that the Gators are doing these days. And then on Friday's show, we're going to have former PGA Tour player who's now on the Senior Tour, Chris DeMarco, talk about his life as a Gator golfer and on the PGA Tour. Almost won the Masters that 1 year against Tiger Woods. So we'll rehash those memories for him. And then we also hope to be joined by Michael Collins, former caddy on the PGA Tour, now works and covers golf for ESPN. So Friday will be our golf show. I'm looking forward to that, especially with the PGA Tour getting ready to crank up. So if you got any questions or comments for those folks, make sure you send us some text on the Titan MRI text line, which is 352-353-7465. You can also always hit us up on Facebook Live with questions or comments as well. I want to let people also know that you can refresh your vehicle and your brand with a vehicle wrap from the Wrap Spot. June is your lucky month at the Wrap Spot. Mention promo code Shane and receive 13% off your vehicle wrap. Visit them at wrapspot.com today. Go get your car wrapped. I know some folks here in town that have their vehicles wrapped and they got them done at the Wrap Spot. Great way to promote your business while you're driving around North Central Florida. Again, I can't thank Peter Burns. That's a busy man. As much podcasting and his radio show that he has now. Obviously, they're not in the studio with SEC now at this time. But taking the time out, he didn't have much time, but he joined us. And it was great talking to Mary Wise, the longest tenured coach here at the UAA, going into her 30th year, has played for the national title twice, yet to get that championship. But she's very excited about her team this year, hoping to get in the season. We had Buddy Martin on the other day, and we talked about with the Georgia Bulldogs with JT Daniels. We also talked with Peter Burns about that today. I don't think he's going to get that waiver to be eligible this year. Plus, he's coming off some injuries. But it's still interesting to me that JT Daniels decided to go to Georgia with all the hype with Jamie Newman there in Athens. I'm anxious to talk to Seatric Faison, talk about his career as a running back tomorrow. He's also works with a bunch of youth over in the Jacksonville area, has a youth league, kind of a Pop Warner type deal that he's been doing for several years over there. But I want to get updated on Gator recruiting. Florida's been making some waves there. Obviously, everyone's talking about what Tennessee is doing, but they have so many people that are committed right now. All those kids can't stay committed to the University of Tennessee. So we'll dive into a little SEC recruiting with Zach and talk about what Seatric Faison has going on. But again, want to thank Mary Wise. Want to thank Peter Burns from the SEC Network for joining today's show. That's going to be a wrap on this edition of Pot Up with Matthews in the Morning. Thanks for watching. Remember, you follow us. Go follow us and like us, but mainly follow us on Facebook Live, YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and Google Podcasts as well. Appreciate you tuning in. Look forward to having you tune in the rest of the week. You've been watching and listening to Pot Up with Matthews in the Morning from the Crime Prevention Security System Studios. Have a great day. We'll see you tomorrow. Take care.